Step 1, take a hammer to the bathroom scale. Step 2, rip up all the diet rule books. And step 3, get ready to redefine what health and well-being means to you. And guess what? It's not your weight, it's not your shape, and it's not how much space you take up. Welcome to Body Kindness. I'm Rebecca Scritchfield. I'm the author of the book Body Kindness and host for this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I ask that you keep an open mind as we have interesting conversations about what it means in this culture to resist and reject and divest from the norms of health is only for people who are pursuing thinness and weight loss and dieting. We can say no to that. That does not help many people create a better life. But through this show and our conversations, I am confident that you will find your own meaningful path to a happier and healthier life. Even if you want things to change, that's okay. But we have a whole lot of unlearning to do, and I invite you to join me on the unlearning. I'm so excited to bring you guys this episode where Bernie and I answer listener questions. If you would like to submit a question for a future episode, visit bodykindnessbook.com/question. That's bodykindnessbook.com/question. A couple quick announcements. If you're a helping professional, I want to let you know about Learn and Grow. It's my 8-month high-touch online mentor program. It is not just for dietitians and therapists, though I love the dietitians and therapists. I want to let you know if you're a trainer, a massage therapist, a yoga instructor, if you're somebody who is involved in mind and body healing, doesn't matter where you're at on your journey. The main criteria is you cannot co-opt and say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to help you lose weight. But other than that, I am going to help you learn and grow, figure things out, business strategy, what you need to know about what it means to be practicing body kindness in this space. I would love for you to consider the program. There are a limited number of spaces and it is application-based. So if this sounds good, start by checking it out. It's bodykindnessbook.com/learn and grow. Give your name and email, and all that's going to do is that is going to get you on a preview list where you'll be one of the first folks to know when applications are open. You can ask me questions about that program at any time. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. Hey, Bernie.
Hey, Becca. How's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm always happy to talk to you. I'm happy to see you and really excited to help listeners today.
Absolutely. We've been getting some questions and I'm glad that we're able to start addressing them. So because you're the expert and this is your podcast, I am going to take on the role of reading them. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to see what you have to say to our listeners. There's some really good questions out here. And, you know, Rebecca was awesome enough to let me kind of go through and select some as well that really resonated with me. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and if it's okay with you, jump right into our first listener question.
I think that's good. The only other thing I'll say is that you're also the expert in your body and you have a different lived experience than me. So what I'd like to do is offer up some insight and, you know, do my Rebecca ramble.
No, absolutely.
But please also
and I appreciate you saying that, you know, and a lot of the reasons why I, you know, selected some of the questions that I had input on selecting were because I feel like I can somewhat relate to like aspects
your questions
of them.
too.
Yeah. So I'll definitely let you know where I'm at in my thinking.
Cool. So, or you might have a question based off my question, based off my answer.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. What do you got?
So our first question comes from our listener Perseverance, and she asks, or he asks, what is one of the hardest things you or your clients have to overcome in their journey to health?
I think ultimately, like what tends to be the hardest, like pervasively hard, is that our culture defines health for us. This is what health means. And a lot of my, I remember first at 9 years old, just being fascinated by the human body, like 9, that was around when I tried my first diet too, like with a friend. Wow. That was not good, but most kids are 10 by their first diet. So this has been, I'm 42. This has been a lifelong experience, my experience with my body and health, and really from a genuine place when I was young, because I was fascinated that your heart would beat till it didn't. I got into being interested in well, how do you care for it? And it really, I think, came from a place of what would be a normal development in this is my body and what do I do to care for it? And so even kind of initially getting into movement, we, grew up socioeconomically disadvantaged. So there was, yes, I had tennis shoes or an outfit that I could wear to work out, but there was no gym membership or anything like that when I got a job as soon as I could, so that then I eventually could go, down that road and everything. But it was free TV workout videos and Gilad Janklowitz. I remember him, and I feel he always was in this beautiful setting, and I would be in my living room in Youngstown, Ohio, and so I was ooh, that looks like a wonderful place to travel. And I felt he was very entertaining and uplifting, and I was getting positive reinforcement. And then it really took a turn, and it's not any one thing, right? But definitely the diet magazines were awful. And it was you literally have a magazine called Health or called Fitness, and you think it's about health and fitness. And it was this is when I was learning things like X number of calories or long, lean legs. This is when I first kind of got this message oh, my legs are a problem. They're not lean. They're not long, so I was getting conditioned to believe that I was a problem, and social comparison. And some of that is normal. But when you look at our culture and how it is evolved, in many ways it's gotten worse. You used to really easily be able to pull out what was a diet. A Slim Fast Shake. Okay, somebody's on a diet, right? But now it's oh, we're not a diet. We're about a healthy lifestyle. That's very, very, very twisted for people. So defining this is what health means to me, right? And that's throughout Body Kindness. It's about your well-being. It's asking yourself the question, what can help me create a better life? What does a better life sound like to me? And then giving you the tools practicing self-compassion and practicing speaking kindly to yourself. But there is also stuff, right, about eating fruits and veggies or things about encouraging movement, And so, but for me, in working on it, what I was working on was reframing health toward well-being. And the reality of it is that the culture creates all the people in it. So we could have someone we care about who is in diet culture and isn't impacted by it. And it's how do you navigate that relationship? And so it's almost you're constantly reminding yourself about your values, what matters to you. And in those sort of sticky situations of okay, so if movement is important, but it's when I go to this workout class at this gym and someone's talking about shred, pain, and hurt, that doesn't sound like body kindness. And it's you would be right. So what do you define as fitness? And then going after that. And it's constant work. My needs matter. My preferences matter. The culture's messed up, not me. What do I need to meet my needs? And that is still every day, because think of the education dietitians get. It is weight-centered. It is rooted in the white supremacy, weight-centered stuff. We have to tease out the weight inclusive elements. So it's all just when you have this understanding of this system, who is being groomed in the fitness industry, who is being groomed in the nutrition industry, and what are they groomed to do? With respect to the question about journey to health, what are you even considering health? Because you were taught weight normative, right? And that's just not what helps enhance well-being. And so it is unlearning forever. And how do you protect yourself while you're doing the unlearning and still kind of have a person you care about in a friendship, even though that they might be doing things that are harmful? When do I set a boundary with them? So
looking at the question as it relates to me, the biggest thing that I've been working with in our time together really has been looking at how society views health, allowing myself to begin to define that for myself, set my own goals for how I want to live in my body, and understanding and praising the goodness that is my body, and what it's able to do for me. So that's extremely hard. And that's something that I've been working on. And so, I mean, in your response, I heard a lot of that. And that's exactly what I feel I've been working on, and the greatest challenge at the same time, because every day, no matter how far I think I'm kind of coming along, there's always that reminder or that image or that word or a prompt that can take me right back to a feeling of maybe feeling inadequate, or like my body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Or, you talked about long, slender legs. Well, I used to joke around a lot about being, I can do the dark and handsome, but the tall's never going to happen. So, that type of redefining just all of this for myself, and then believing it, right? Because you can redefine it in an exercise that you're going through and talk yourself through it, but you leave that session or you leave that thought process, and your immediate next thought is based on a billboard that's feeding right into socially what's beautiful, what's strong, what's masculine, in my case, and go right back to that way of thinking.
Bernie, you are wiser than you give yourself credit for. Like, seriously. When you were giving your answer, it just popped in my mind, shame resilience, right? And that's a topic we've been talking about. And that's exactly what you're processing. So what is my identity and view for health? And when I'm having thoughts of shame or feelings of shame, like I don't fit in or I'm inadequate, how do I take that back and redefine it? But then what you said about beliefs, so on point, like from a psychological standpoint. So when we talk on the show a lot about values, right? I want to be the kind of person who, there's a whole part of the book, part 3, who you are, that's all about values. I mean, it's delivered in this like planning, like, hey, am I going to grocery shop on Sunday, right? But there's parts there on values identify that it's about the kind of person you want to be. And when people say, hey, changing is hard, it definitely is. The brain has to learn, but it's not the brain learning in the wiring piece. It's that the belief system has to change. And so what's challenging is that we have to be in enough of a place where we're willing to kind of like take a risk and write down this, I want to be the kind of person who, right? Because we don't believe we're that person yet, right? Our belief is upheld by the diet culture. That's what the belief really is.
No,
right?
Absolutely. And I think for me, it's even getting to a point, and I had the awesome experience of being next to you throughout the ACSM conference. And for me, being able to see how you are vocal in your belief, in your stance, in the work that we're doing together. And that was difficult for me. Is, yes, I'm doing the work for myself. I'm starting to truly believe what I have set out to believe, which is I'm worthy, my body is good enough. These are my views on how I see health in my life. But then verbalizing them, right, and standing up to a billboard, to a person, to an instructor, to a trainer, to a doctor, to a teacher, these authorities that we view and sometimes really place on a pedestal, and whose opinion we value about our bodies over ourselves. Right. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm really fighting to start giving myself the credit owed, and that's where, maybe a lot of our listeners, maybe you are along on this, on your journey. And one of the things that you're finding problems doing is being vocal when people really say things that are no longer what you choose to believe in, or are flat out incorrect about your body, so that's really important to me.
And don't worry about their response. There's benefit to you even just saying it and setting that boundary, because you can't control other people's responses. And usually the response of someone who's more privileged is is almost gaslight you back. Well, that's not what I meant. I didn't say it that way and blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about the response. Worry about that you are advocating for yourself and know that you can do hard things. If you feel you have the emotional, it's not always a good time to say something, but know that you have rights and it's not fair that you have to do more work than other people.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about healing and changing your beliefs, as you start talking and setting some boundaries and, setting some expectations, you'll see that you are able to get a little bit more of what you want, or at least just kind of feel a little bit better that you stood up to yourself. And that's going to create
I think that's
a sort
the
of
big thing, is just knowing that I am standing up for myself, that I'm not shrinking in that belief. Because again, I think, and I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on air, but the bigger my body is, the more I want to make it shrink in a room, or,
like I got to hide.
I got to hide.
You have,
so
like a year or so ago, talked about that.
For me, it's about making sure that I'm not shrinking down when I'm talking about myself and my body and just in general, but especially when it comes to a topic where I know I'm the expert, and that's me.
Right. Take up space. Quick note for you on that. I think one of the tips for you, what you can do is, because you mentioned movement, if you're interested, or any listeners interested, there is Fit Fatties, which is a free Facebook group. It's run by Reagan Chastain. It's highly moderated, which is good because not a lot of Facebook groups are. It's only to talk about exercise-related movement. So I'm part of the group, right, as an ally, right, as, person, if I can answer a question around movement, I want to be able to do that. But it's a very big and active community. And so part of feeling like there are places where we can belong and be like, okay, so this is a group where I can see what people are posting about, where I can see, even if like, hey, like, can anyone offer words of encouragement, whether it's, I'm feeling a sore glute, or, does anyone have a resource for something in Chicago that I'm looking for, something around movement? Because I think that that's also a really important piece, is knowing you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Right. Next question.
Next question comes to us from Heather N. And she says, I've been struggling again with my eating disorder in recovery. I'm finding it very difficult to feel like I deserve to nourish my body. I feel very guilty and ashamed. What are some ways I can take small steps in body kindness?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is, like, whenever I hear anyone mention eating disorder recovery, the utmost empathy. Eating disorders are true mental health issues. They can be very complicated. They can be long battles. And a lot of people who don't really understand them, like people who just have never been touched by eating disorder, they oversimplify it. So, and they judge you, right? If you're smaller, oh, just go eat a hamburger. What's wrong with you, right? If you're higher weight, often they'll be like, oh, well, you can't have an eating disorder, when somebody does, right? Or they assume if you do it must be binge eating. That's actually not true. You could actually have anorexia. So there's a lot of twisted stuff around eating disorders. But because that was mentioned in the question, the first thing that I want to say that I think would help any listener is make sure you have a good and reliable care team. So whether you're an outpatient, an intensive outpatient program, you might be listening, currently in a higher level of care and stepping down, you need to have people on your team. And I highly recommend that you work with people who are Health at Every Size informed. For any weight or any eating disorder, I think that Health at Every Size informed eating disorder specialists really understand a lot of the forward-thinking elements that are in body kindness. If anyone struggles with finances, because again, the system is so messed up, and how do you get diagnosed and get approved and insurance, and it's very, very complicated. But I at least want to let you know that there are some resources, just quick things to go to. So Project Heal, I know they have a scholarship program, and so you apply and you can get scholarships to get treatment at all different levels. So look into something like that. And then also like places like the National Eating Disorder Association that can help connect you to care. And you can always email me too. I'm happy to help. So that's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. So that's just the eating disorder piece of it. To finish answering the question, so the challenge with feeling like you deserve to nourish your body. So keep in mind from the book that you can't control your thoughts or feelings, right? And so we have an inner critic, a perfectionist, that makes us feel unworthy. So this is an issue of worthiness, right? Like you don't deserve this or that. From the book, I would recommend using the PACT skill. So that's based on acceptance and commitment theory, where you notice your thoughts and your feelings, but without calling them wrong. Like, don't think that, don't think that, don't think that. Which, of course, that's what we want. We want to not think that, or we want to change that thought. But if you can accept that you can't control your thoughts or feelings, you can notice them and say, oh, yep, that's my critic again. All right, like, thank you, mind, for trying to be helpful here, but you're really not helpful telling me that I'm unworthy. I, want to be the kind of person who nourishes my body. And so I'm going to rely on my care team to help me. So that could be one example of how you might work with those thoughts. And then she mentioned shame. And so just understand that shame is you're a bad person. That's what it's saying to you, is that you are a bad person. And so that's where we're connecting that worthiness. So the practices of self-compassion will be really helpful. So in the book, I talk about loving kindness meditation. And there's a podcast where I do a really brief guide of loving kindness meditation. You can also look up Sharon Salzberg. She is a meditation guru and does a lot on loving kindness meditation. I mean, for YouTube videos, podcasts. She has a book called Real Love, which is about loving kindness meditation. Her stuff has been researched in positive psychology. So a lot of what I was researching, her work, and especially how loving kindness related to enhancing well-being, enhancing self-compassion, and positive psychology, that's kind of what I use, and had to pick and choose what I could fit in the book about it. But, there's a lot that couldn't make it in there that could help. Kristen Neff is a self-compassion guru. I don't know her to be Health at Every Size, but I do know she was recently a guest on EDRD Pro, which is a Health at Every Size training for registered dietitians that my friend Sumner Brooks runs. And so I think that she probably has some very useful tools. I know that she has a newer mindful self-compassion workbook. So it might be that, okay, you kind of got a taste of what self-compassion is about and some of the prompts in body kindness for how you could speak more kindly to yourself. Maybe doing a deeper dive into the practice of self-compassion would really help you with that. And again, those are all small steps in the practice of body kindness. But just one last thing from the book, that when I kind of talk about the idea of think of things that are small, smart, and swift. And of course, when you're writing a book, it's like, oh, well, this could be a person who's trying to move more. This could be a person who actually really does feel like that they order out a lot and don't think about veggies or fruits. And so they want to think about that. So you don't really know kind of how to put it out there. So you just come up with a few different examples. But for this particular listener, small, smart, and swift might be like, okay, you know what, this week I'm going to listen to a couple podcasts that are about self-compassion. I'm going to see how that helps me. This next week, I'm going to do some journaling prompts in the self-compassion book. And so it's like that those are, if you think of what's the smallest thing that you could do, that you could take immediate action on, that is how your brain learns that it's not just going to take the sort of BS your inner critic is giving you. So literally when I tell people, tell me what's the least you can do, I'm not, oh, just make it easy. I'm trying to help you work with your brain so it can learn and grow quickly, because we also get a reward from sort of like, oh, I did that. I accomplished something I didn't think I could do. That feels good, right? That spiral up, and then you're going to repeat it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. One thing that I do and did start with is just finding something that my inner voice could compliment myself about. Whether it was, hey, my hair looked okay that day, or,
body appreciation, something appreciation.
For me, it was just something I could do that was swift right there, and also took more of an effort than I thought. And it led to really me exploring other ways I could be kinder to myself. Cool. But those are some really great resources that you offered. And cool. Our next listener question I'm going to jump right into comes from Aaron. It says, I've recently realized that I'm struggling with orthorexia. I want to be body positive, but after some unintentional weight loss due to stress and adopting a vegan diet, I'm feeling a new kind of insecurity about gaining the weight back. Do you have any advice about how to navigate recovery from both the obsessive food anxiety and the insecurity about gaining weight? I've never been overweight, but I suddenly have this new anxiety that I will go crazy following intuitive eating.
Okay. So I got to be honest, I'm a little worried about Erin here. So, and here's why. I'm not really getting a sense that she has explored
diagnosis. So she mentions feelings of anxiety. So orthorexia is not a clinical eating disorder. And it's not that it wouldn't be, right? It could take a long time to kind of identify something else as its own thing. But so it's not like you could go and see somebody who diagnoses, like a therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, a doctor could diagnose. Dietitians don't. But it's not that, they say, oh, you have orthorexia and it matches this code, right? But there are categories. I mean, it could be anything, including a category that's like, this is an unspecified eating disorder. And I think the thing that makes me worried about it is that it's not that when you get this diagnosis, there's a certain specific path, and without a diagnosis, you can't go anywhere on the path. But then she also mentioned vegan. And vegan is really interesting. Like, for example, there are eating disorder treatment centers that won't allow people to be in treatment as a vegan. And there are people who are like legitimate ethical vegans that don't like it to be labeled as something that could cause an eating disorder. So it's one of those gray areas, right? Where it's like, is somebody using like vegan for health, then it's slipped to unhealthy, right? As opposed to like, I love animals and care so deeply about the environment. And I'm literally like, in my values, this is a path I want to follow. And so I mentor helping professionals. And one of the folks who are in my cohort now is a lifelong ethical vegan. And she does health at every size as well. And so it's like, her name's Taylor Wolfram, by the way. I'll include a link to her Instagram. But it's that idea that you can choose vegan because you believe it's in line with your values, and that's great. But that there's a slippery slope, right? That vegan will, for health reasons, and I lost weight. Like, there's no reason to lose weight on vegan because there's so many seeds and nuts and oils and grains. There are plenty of foods to meet your nutrition needs. So if stress was triggering weight loss, well, why? Did you have a lack of appetite? Well, just because you have a lack of appetite doesn't mean your body doesn't need nourishment. And if you were further along in intuitive eating, you would know. Well, yeah, it says honor your hunger and respect your fullness, but that doesn't mean only eat when hungry. So in reading intuitive eating, you would find out, that stress can be a barrier to having that sense of joy around food, or that sense of interest in eating, or that sense of nourishment around food. But just because we're feeling stressed doesn't mean that we can't pause to nourish ourselves. It's more of a matter of noticing the stress and making sense of it, saying, oh, yes, I remember what this is like when I'm feeling stress. I lose my appetite. So what are some go-tos that I could have? And so I'm just thinking really simply, right? 2 pieces of wheat toast with a thick layer of peanut butter and a whole banana, right? With a glass of chocolate soy milk, right? Vegan. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do.
And it shouldn't cause weight loss. Now, if your stress and anxiety is so unmanageable that you're having diarrhea, you're not absorbing everything. And so we would want to treat the diarrhea, right, with hydration, electrolytes, foods that help regulate, as well as breathing and meditation and sleep and all those body kind of self-care things. So you get kind of where I'm saying, where there's a lot that I have to be worried about in this question. And that's even just, okay, like what is this? But then when the voice comes back to, first of all, just for future education, like, I don't like the words overweight or obese, because it's like, over what weight? And obese is a medicalized term that says, oh, this higher weight body is a problem, and that's not scientifically true. But the fact that it's this sudden anxiety that, if you do intuitive eating, that you're gonna gain all this weight. So first to that, there's nothing wrong with anybody at any size. We are all human, and we are all good, and we are all worthy. Condition, weight, size, shape, we all have got to start saying this to ourselves over and over and over again. It's again, the culture is the problem. So you're first telling yourself there's nothing wrong, right? I will work on taking care of my body. And I trust that with the right support in the mindset healing. So we got to deal with the overwhelming stress and anxiety. We've got to deal with adequate nourishment. Whether you stay on vegan, it shouldn't result in weight loss. Weight loss is not seen as a good thing. It's seen as a concern for malnourishment and malnutrition at any size, by the way. Now, again, higher weight person, oh my gosh, you lost weight, you look great. I might worry about, you might be malnourished. You're not getting your vitamins and minerals. You're not pooping daily. Let's look at this. So that's the difference from a health at every size practitioner standpoint. So another Rebecca ramble, but I'm really concerned about a lot of what I read in there. Intuitive eating is about connecting and trusting and making peace with your body and food. And it is the way to eat. It's the way that we're born. It's the way we all should be eating. You can intersect intuitive eating with any medical condition. So diabetes, cancer, you can intersect intuitive eating with everything. It's a common misconception that it's like, oh, just eat whatever you want, whenever you want. And intuitive eating helps you heal your relationship with food from diet culture. And that's why in Body Kindness, there's basically a paragraph that says intuitive eating is amazing. It's been in all these studies. This is what it's based on. Because my expectation is everyone who reads Body Kindness either already read intuitive eating or they will go and read intuitive eating and do the intuitive eating workbook. So those are resources by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, right? They're dietitians that created it in 1995, right? So read their stuff, practice their stuff, bring it in with your support group or however you're getting, healing support, and go on that journey and know that your body is good no matter what it ends up. And that really what the problem here is your overwhelming anxiety that is controlling you. It's keeping you from Body Kindness because it's making you afraid.
No, absolutely. I mean, I did want this question to be addressed because a lot of what Erin shared, I definitely was concerned as well. Just really quickly, even this anxiety about going crazy if she follows intuitive eating, that to me was reminiscent of me not trusting myself and severely restricting.
Oof.
So it's of course, if I'm going to do this thing called intuitive eating, I'm not going to trust myself.
Do you mean right after the show or even when we started working together? Both.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's why, and I think even in some of our earlier podcasts, you'll hear me be open to it, but not fully understanding of what that meant or how that was going to affect my relationship with myself and food and health in general.
So understanding that there's uncertainty there.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right. But then working on a self-care plan anyway.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So, Erin, we do thank you for that question. And Rebecca, we thank you for really jumping in and answering all the questions on today's listener Q&A.
Yeah, if you have a question for the show, we plan to do a lot more of these episodes. Visit bodykindnessbook.com. Click on the podcast button and you'll see there's a drop down where you can ask a question. We also have a redirect set up. So it's bodykindnessbook.com/question. And there's a form. And ask this question. If you give your email to, we'll let you know what episode it's going to be on and where we've answered it. And we'll give you the direct link. That way you can listen to the response. But thank you all so much for listening. Please leave a rating and review if you can. And also pretty please, if you can support the show, we really need it. So it's gofundme.com/bodykindness. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Rebecca, for really putting this podcast out. And as Rebecca said and shared, if you could go out and support us, that'd be fantastic. But until next time, be kind.
And that's our show. The podcast is made possible with support from listeners. Please donate to help offset production costs at gofundme.com/bodykindness. And please rate and review the show when you have a moment. It really matters. Let's keep the conversations going on Facebook. Search Body Kindness and request to join the group for Body Kindness readers and listeners. Have a question for us to answer on a future episode? Visit bodykindnessbook.com/question. Body Kindness books and audiobooks are available wherever books are sold. To request a signed print copy, visit bodykindnessbook.com/order. For other questions about this podcast, please email info@bodykindnessbook.com.